The bids range from $4.7 million to $5.9 million. And we awarded the contract to Slate Construction. They're out of state in Oregon. And their bid was $5.5 million. So where's the Board of Commissioners at currently? They said before they make a decision to remove the dam or not remove the dam, they wanted answers to several questions. And not all those questions have been answered yet, but several have been. The first question they wanted to know is, can the dam be rehabilitated? And yes, the answer is yeah, it can. It will cost about $16 million to do that. The second question they had is power generation feasible, legal, and cost effective? Basically what we're finding is probably not going to be cost effective. In order to add power generation back to that dam, it costs $62 million. That's in addition to the 16. You have to spend the 16 to keep the dam and everything, and then you have to do another 62 to add power generation. Estimates right now, the power generation would generate about $1.5 million per year in revenue. And once you add in the operation and maintenance costs and in earning back your 62, or actually it's your $78 million, the payback period is in excess of $50 million a year. And depending on what discount rate or interest rate you use, the dam might not ever pay for itself. And so that is not looking real positive in terms of making that a feasible alternative. Again, the Board of Commissioners hasn't made a final decision on that yet. Question on the sediment. How much of the sediment is there? Where's it going to go? And what's in the sediment is a question they had. And then what's going to be required from the county for wetlands? If the county has to mitigate that huge 500-acre green area that I showed behind there, that's going to be a huge problem for us because we have $5 million to remove the dam. We don't have another $5 million to go mitigate that wetland someplace.
What's the change in the law that's required to have it?
Currently, it is illegal to put hydroelectric power in the Road River. There's a law that has been passed in the 60s that basically said it's illegal to put hydroelectric power in the Road River. Bub's here shaking his head, and we can disagree. But the attorneys that that work for the county said, no, you can't do that without changing the law. Now, can you change the law? Of course, you can change any law. You have to go through the legislative process, and there's going to be opponents to that and everything else. But the current interpretation from our county council is it's simply against the law to do this, change the law.
How did they get away with Lost Creek then?
The law specifically says hydroelectric power. You can't put a dam on the Road River, and actually it goes from Lost Creek south. But you can't put a dam in the Road River for the purposes of hydroelectric power. Lost Creek Dam is for flood control.
We have to disagree. Does it have hydroelectric power at the Lost Creek Dam?
Yes, but it's
and how would they have to put that in if there was a water main?
Because of the law.
You know, government
the question of the wetlands. I'm sorry, the question of the sediment. The question of what's behind that dam, how much of it, where's it at, and everything else. What you see here is here's the dam here, and then the little arch there is the timber crib dam. And behind the dam, you would anticipate basically that thing being filled, almost to the top full of sediment and material. What they found was that is not the case. They've gone out and taken samples and looked at this, and basically what you're finding is behind the dam and the main river stem itself, there's between 0 and 3 feet of sediment behind it. So the sediment is not nearly as deep as they thought. The sediment in the sloughs is deep, and you'd expect that it's very slow-moving water where it drops, the bed load drops out, and that sediment falls. So the sediment in the sloughs, there's not a lot there, or there's a great deal there, but in the main stem of the river, there's simply not that much sediment compared to what you'd think. Then they went to a test of it. They pulled samples throughout in the area, and basically what the sediment they found is gravels, sands, and cobbles. And so it's spine habitat kind of material. It's kind of material that's considered to be good for the stream. And where the Department of Division of State Lands and the Army Corps of Engineers, primarily the Army Corps of Engineers, which oversees that, is concluding that they're saying if you proceed with dam removal, their recommendation is doing what they call blow and go. Remove the dam and let that sediment move downstream under natural processes and just leave it alone. Their suggestion is don't try to remove it, don't do anything.
John.
I'm gonna move on.
Won't, if you're saying that that river will never move from its current position, it will not go to the top of the stream there and take out the rest of that sediment and run it downstream. That's what you're presuming.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
But
I
we'll come back to that.
Today's meeting is really about the history. I'm sure there'll be some
Okay.
time to have conversation when the Board of Commissioners is contemplating this.
So the direction we're getting now is to do basically a glow and go, let the sediment go downstream under natural processes. The second concern that was there is basically what's in the sediment. That there was, there's a lot of mining in this area, and there's a lot of concerns about mercury and other things. And so they took a series of samples in this area, and what they're finding is that they found nothing in the sediment anywhere that is regulatory, where it's above any regulatory limits, and you have to go dig the sediment out. The biggest concern that we had is, do you have to dig everything out and mitigate it? Because if you do it, that would pretty much kill the project right there. The green area that I showed before. So you have this braided channel that has continually, Bud just mentioned it. The channel moves back and forth through here throughout time, and it's moved back and forth through that wetlands numerous times. And you can see at 52, probably about 50% of the water went through the middle of the site, through the north of the site, and then the south of the site. It kind of was a braided channel, went everywhere. In 64, that all changed, and that a huge berm of material was deposited through this area. And the river now flows primarily just to the south. There are channels that go through here that you can float a canoe on and other stuff, but the huge majority of it flows through here to the south. So the question is, basically, what is this? Is this wetland? Is it not wetland? Is it upland? What is it? Clearly, because everything's brown around it, this is influenced by water. But is it considered a wetland? And so the scientists have gone out and went through the whole area, and what they've submitted to the Division of State Lands, who regulates wetlands in Oregon, and is the final say on it. The area that you see colored is what's considered to be a jurisdictional wetland. Everything else is classified as an upland. Basically, it's not a regulated wetland. So you can see that the huge majority of this area is not considered a wetland, but these areas here are. And we have not gotten word back from the Division of State Lands on what that's going to be required. We don't know what the final outcome of that is. If they're going to require us to mitigate for that, if it's in stream, just leave it alone. We don't know what their answer is going to be, and we're waiting for that answer before a final decision is made. I just throw this slide up here. I've been associated with a lot of highway projects, and that's what my background is, building roads and highways. And when we build roads and highways, we need permits on everything. I haven't been associated with a project that had quite a laundry list like this one, and that list can go on and on. There's pretty much every permit possible that we need on this project. So where we're at, the SLATE team, they have to basically do everything. They have to do the sediment studies, they have to do the environmental studies, the restoration studies, they have to complete the NEPA documentation, the National Environmental Policy Act. They're going to do an EA, they're going to study 3 alternatives, a do-nothing alternative or a no-action alternative. Full rehabilitation with and without power generation, and that's finishing up, and then dam removal. They have to get all the permits, and then if the board approves it, they're going to do they have to do the demolition and the design for it, and then do the demolition. They got 75 days to do it, starting June 15th. If you remember, we received $5 million, and our estimate from SLATE was $5.5 million. We have received another $1 million from the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, which fully funds the project now. And so where are we at? The board hasn't made a final decision on this. Are they leaning a direction? If they weren't leaning towards dam removal, they wouldn't have accepted the money, they wouldn't have proceeded this way. Yeah, they are leaning towards dam removal, there's no question of that. They have not made a final decision because some of those questions they ask have not been answered finally yet. They want answers to those questions before they make that decision.